Hi, I'm Brett, and I'm about to tell you how I surprised myself and fell in love with the new film Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. If you don't know me, my name is Brett Culp, and I'm the producer-director of a film called Legends of the Night, which tells the stories of people who were inspired to become real-life superheroes because of their childhood love of Batman. And I'm also in the middle right now of a documentary film called Look to the Sky, which tells the stories of young people who have embodied the spirit of Superman in their life. So I've spent a lot of time and energy emotionally invested in these characters over the past few years. Now, because of the inspirational nature and the positiveness and the lightness of these documentary films that I've worked on, which are both very family-friendly, I almost kind of felt a moral obligation going into Batman v Superman to not like it. I had watched the trailers, I had seen the sense of it. It was clear that it was going to be a very dark movie, that it was going to be heavy, also that it was pitting these two superheroes against each other, and why in the world would anyone want to do that? That felt very heavy to me, and I almost felt like I should just hate this movie going in, and that was kind of my preconception. But I actually left loving it, and I want to share why I did and why I think maybe some people don't. But really, I just want to focus on my own experience with this film and what it meant to me. First of all, let me say, for anyone just watching this film that wants to know whether or not it's a good, fun, family-friendly, nice, light action-adventure superhero film to go see, let me just tell you, it isn't. That's not what this movie is. Obviously, it's billed as a big action-adventure, but this is not for kids, in my judgment. And let me also say this. If you feel like Superman should always be this ideal, almost unachievable, perfect presence, maybe a little flawed, but really a perfect guy, you're never going to be able to accept this movie. If you feel that way kind of about Batman 2, that Batman should live at this level where he reaches these ideals consistently, and if he doesn't reach those ideals, then you just can't accept it and they've destroyed your Batman, then you're probably not going to like this movie either. Let me get very specific with these characters and tell you exactly what I mean by that. Batman, this movie opens with yet another reenactment of the death of his parents. There was part of me when I saw that, it's like, why do we have to do this again? We've done this in every Batman reboot since the beginning of time, showing this. In fact, it's now shorthand in the world of cinema that when you see pearls falling to the ground, it means Batman's mom is dying. Why did we need to see that again? But what I realized is that what they're juxtaposing at the very beginning of this film is that feeling of Batman running and falling into the cave, and that pain of that and that hurt of that, that is the same hurt that Bruce Wayne experiences when he watches the Wayne Tower in Metropolis get destroyed at the very beginning of this film because of what Superman did. He essentially is re-experiencing that pain again. He is seeing it again. He is falling into that pit. And I would say the majority of this film, maybe, I don't know how long, an hour maybe, hour 15, hour and a half, he is that broken person once again. He is not himself. He is not acting the way we idealize Batman to act. He is hurting. He is done. And in fact, when you hear some of the lines that Alfred quotes and says to him, and some of the things that Bruce Wayne says back to him, you realize this is not an ideal Batman. So some of the things that you're seeing and feeling from him and saying, that's not Batman. Batman doesn't do those things. You're exactly right. Batman doesn't do those things. This is not our Batman. This is a broken Batman. Now, what the beauty of the movie, in fact, that opening scene, I think is foreshadowing when he falls down. And it turns out to be a dream sequence where he is then in almost this spiritual, ethereal way being risen up out of that cave by those bats. Now, you look at that in the moment that happens, you're like, oh, this is a dream. This isn't real because of that happening. But that is actually a foreshadowing. I think it's actually an encapsulation of the journey Batman, Bruce Wayne, is going to go on through this entire film. This is what he experiences. And so what you are watching is this man who has been broken, who has gone back to that pit, rise again. And what is incredible about this film, in my judgment, and unique about it, is what it is that is the thing that lifts him again, what lifts him the second time. And it's subtle, and it's so easy to miss. And I think what it is that lifted him up. But then let's switch. Let's go to Superman. Superman is this character that we idealize again as this bold, happy, smiling, bright person. But in this movie, he is confused. He is lost. He's even a little sad because he is discouraged that maybe what he's doing isn't going to have any real impact. He feels like he's doing the best he can, but he is confused. He is worried that he doesn't know how to really help anybody. And he feels like the world is just attacking him, that the more he does, the worse it becomes. And I think when you look at those two characters, the one, Batman, who feels burnout and done and in despair whether or not anything he can do or has done has really made any difference, and feels like he's now back in the same hole that he was as a child. And then you've got Superman, who is this other character who feels like, I have this great power, I've done all these things, but what has it really accomplished? Who have I really helped? And should this mission even continue? I think they're kind of showing us. I mean, I think I sat there and there were a couple of things that those characters did and said that I got very emotional in, because I felt the pain of that. I felt the hurt of what they were experiencing. And those same questions that they were asking, I have asked those questions of myself before in the things I've done. I've spent a lot of times, if you watch my films, a lot of them, the core of them, is rooted in pain. It's rooted in people overcoming that pain, but I am kind of forced in my films to enter into some really hard, really heavy spaces. And that's where this film takes us. That's what it shows us. Now, again, you have to be willing or open to let go of those ideals of those characters to be able to enter those spaces with them. But I think when we all open up our own hearts and look at the world, we do start to wonder, am I, as a person, having any effect? Can I go on? Can I do this? And I think then when you look at the two characters that way, and then you say, what is this movie? How has this movie been billed? It's been billed as Batman versus Superman, these two gladiators that are going to fight, that hashtag that's now been around for weeks and months of who will win? Who will win? This is going to be a fight between these two guys. And when you watch the film, you realize that all of this stuff in this fight has been to draw these two guys together because of their pain, because of their difficulties, because of the fears that they have and the uncertainty that they have. That is ultimately what's drawing them together, and they're being manipulated by some forces that are larger than them to do that. And I think we can very much relate to that. I think, frankly, if you look at the political scene, it's very apparent that we are doing this right now. When we look at Facebook and social media and Twitter and all the mean stuff we're saying to each other on social media and Facebook all the time, we're doing this to each other. When you look at churches and communities and families, we are doing this to each other. We are in our pain, in our difficulty, identifying each other so quickly as the bad guy, and then saying, I'm going to defeat you, I'm going to destroy you. And, which is particularly where Batman is in his pain. And I look at people and see their stories and watch them and say, this is the kind of thing we're experiencing right now in our world. And I think what becomes incredible is, and I'm gonna say, this is a spoiler right now, so I'm gonna spoil the movie. If you don't want to see this, then stop right now. What ultimately brings these two together, after Superman has tried to bring them together and it hasn't worked, is the moment where Batman realizes for the first time something that we as hardcore comic book fans of Batman and Superman have known from the beginning of our reading, and I realized this very early, is that these two characters, their mothers have the same name. Both of them are named Martha. And I have no idea in the history of comic books how that happened. I don't know if it was intentional or it was just an accident. I'm going to guess it was historically, probably just an accident where two writers didn't even realize that these two characters had the same name. But in comic books, Martha Wayne, Bruce's mother, dies. in comic books, Martha Kent is Clark Kent's mother. And there is something about that moment where Bruce Wayne, Batman, realizes that he and Superman have the exact same, their mothers have the same name, that it changes him. And I think looking at Superman, seeing him, he sees him in a fresh way. He sees him in a new way and sees him not as a rival or as an enemy, but as a potential friend, as an ally. And he realized that there's been all this manipulation around them, all of these forces at play to get them against each other. But that moment is a moment that allows Batman to rise again. And I think, for me, the profound moment of that in the movie was knowing that about all of us. There are so many differences between us. There are so many reasons that we can fight, and we get caught up in the details of life that make us want to fight each other and battle each other. And we make a big deal about the battles and make them out like they're so important, and that the decisions and the finales about who wins and who loses matter so much. But the truth is, the reality is that you and I, our mothers have the same. Our mothers have the same name.